A crime film is one of the essential genres in the history of cinema. The earliest crime films were the adaptation of plays or novels. It is inspired by the crime fiction literature and visualizes not only the details of the crime itself, but the background and/or consequences of it. Often, this genre overlaps with other genres and sometimes forms new subgenres, such as crime comedy, crime drama, mystery film, and many more. For instance, the crime drama film was formed from two very broad and comprehensive genres. Would you guess them? Right, crime and drama. Although crime films have been popular throughout film history, the genre itself is highly dependent on the historical factors. Subgenres as German Expressionism, French New Wave, and film noir depict the emotional state of the society, which is interconnected with such historical occasions as World War I and World War II, the Great Depression, and geopolitical confrontation of America and Europe. Carol Reed's The Third Man was released in 1949 and became one of the best conventional film noirs of all time. Famous film critic, a winner of the Pulitzer Prize, Roger Ebert, left a very pleasant comment about this film. In general, the concept of film noir refers to the depiction of darkness, rain-brilliant streets, the world of crimes, vices, and sins. The keen sense of depression that overtook around Europe and the United States after World War II, in essence, was a belated response to the 30s. This is a brilliant example of the conventional noir film shot, a guard representing danger and power. This is emphasized through the low-angle shot with low-key lighting. The idea of a man in the uniform who has more competencies that ordinary people perfectly suits the world of noir. However, 59 years later, when another brilliant crime film was released, the ideology of the film noir became outdated and somewhat archaic. In Bruges, by Martin McDonagh, is a bright example of the complexity of the crime film genre that overlaps with a comedy, action, thriller, and most importantly, drama. So, in some sense, The Third Man and In Bruges are very similar to their genre and context. However, if we would discover these two films deeper, we can find the differences in cinematography, distinguished representations of crime, and the message that is sent by both films. These two movies are one of the greatest representatives of crime film. However, the 59-year gap between the release date of The Third Man and In Bruges shows that the genre has undergone a huge number of changes, mainly due to the shifts in a general social model that every art medium of its time, and film surely one of them, manifests in some sense. The difference in the time of the production of these films emphasizes the sociological factor and the agenda of each epic. Stylistically, the film noir stands out and is hard to mix it up with any other genre. According to the Production Code of the Motion Picture Industry by David Hayes, film noir canons are: ferocious murder is forbidden, alcoholism and drug trafficking scenes should be avoided as much as possible,
This is the life. Would you like some cocaine?
sex scenes do not have to be used, impolite, abusive dialogue are forbidden.
Screw you, motherfucker!
That's right, none of these principles are observed in the film that was made in 2008. The reason for such significant change is the historical background. In the late 50s, society was highly affected by the war, and people seen enough violence and bloodshed. Artists, writers, and filmmakers tried to show the reflection of the war's aftermath, society's depression, and reveal the true nature of a human being when everyone has to survive in a cruel world of scarcity and egoism. So the death cinematically doesn't exist in The Third Man. Usually, cinematographer shows the consequences and let the audience figure it out. For instance, in these shot, victims of the fraud of one of the characters were children in the hospital. A terrible death is shown straight in the shot. Cinematographer gives enough clues to the audience to understand everything. A nurse picks up a toy from the crib of a deceased child and throws it to the pile of other toys, symbolizing child's death. While In Bruges was filmed in the first decade of the 21st century and breaks romantic stereotypes about the lives of gangsters. The cruelty and horror of killers are shown through the close-up shots of the victims. An enormous amount of the blood and brutality of the crime should terrify the audience and represent murder as is. Unlike in The Third Man, cinematography doesn't abstain from the violence, but represents it in the most objective way. Murder is a murder, and the killer is not a hero from a Western book but the evil. In 2008, there was a peak of the homicide percentage in the UK, which is associated with the financial crisis that affected many people. The POV shot lets the audience get the perspective of the hitman, and the wide shot from the top is used to show the consequences of the murder. The Third Man's cinematography of the crime scenes is gentle and delicate. People die on the screen without a single drop of blood shown to the audience. The canons of the noir film simply won't let this happen. Every kind of crime film subgenre would contain at least one chasing scene. Whether it is a chase of a detective and a criminal, or two gangsters pursue each other, it doesn't matter. Chasing scenes are used to create action and the feeling of danger on the screen, so my chosen films are not an exception, but the ways of filming such scenes differ. If you would look carefully at the chasing scene from The Third Man, the number of cuts astonishes. Almost every cut lasts no longer than 7 seconds. This editing technique is used to create a fast displacement of the character from shot to shot and therefore keep the pace of a chase at the high level. Another distinct technique in this film is the use of shadows. Proper lighting would give a cinematographer a big shadow that would represent a character, and because it doesn't move as fast as the actual object but increase in size instead, this trick is very common in this movie. Big shadows and the use of dark are essential for film noir. It helps to symbolize the evil and create an atmosphere of danger and mystery. However, over time, cinematography of the chasing scenes has been changed. Also, it's very important to mention that often the choice of the cinematic techniques are strongly dependent on the location. For instance, in Bruges was filmed in the medieval city called, you wouldn't believe it, but Bruges. So, in order to show the dynamic of the chase and show the beautiful location, cinematographers used tracking full and medium shots. Excluding the close-up shots, let the audience see the streets and canals of Bruges, and tracking camera keep the dynamic on a proper level. Some may argue that Vienna, the city where The Third Man was filmed, is also a beautiful city, and there are many views to show. However, the historical context changes the perspective on many things. 1949, only 4 years after the end of World War II and showing the destruction of the city, the aftermath of the war is way more significant than shooting beautiful landscapes of the medieval city. Thus, through the high frequency of the cuts, cinematographers translate widespread damage that the war caused. Alexandre Dumas, famous French writer, in one of his novels wrote "Cherchez la femme," which means "look for the woman." This iconic line for French literature perfectly suits unpredictable, romantic, and sometimes even foolish behavior of the protagonist in most crime films. A figure of a woman is one of the most important aspects of this genre. At the same time, many films canonically noted for their inclusion of the femme fatale are deeply interested in the portrayal of female desire, ambition, and victimization in culture and society. J. Grossman. Women become a reason, a motivation, and most importantly, a hope for the antagonist. Even in such film as The Third Man, in which the feelings are not the fundamental theme in the genre of noir, but they are important to show the character's tragedy in the film. The female character, Anna Schmidt, unconsciously manipulates Holly Martin's decisions. Throughout the storytime, he could return to the US without any consequences for him. However, his feeling to Anna drives him to stay and do everything he can to help and assure his security. While in the film called In Bruges, the female character is a light of hope for the hopeless man. Ray instantly falls in love with Chloe, and she becomes a trigger for his first positive emotion. And how could he not catch romantic feelings when her beauty is emphasized with such detailed and specific lighting? Medium close-up shots and bright-rimmed lights combined with messy hair make her even more desirable, not only for Ray, but for the audience as well. The importance of the woman in the shot is highlighted with specific cinematography and lighting. For example, this close-up shot of Anna from The Third Man is used to emphasize her beauty and sadness at the same time. Eye-level shot creates a feeling of presence for the audience and without raising her above others, but not lowering her significance either. Another lighting technique used in this shot is butterfly lighting. It creates shadows under the cheeks and chin, but adds lots of light to the other parts of the face. This can help minimize a double chin and fills in shadows in wrinkles. Thus, hide all imperfections and represent the character in the best possible way, while In Bruges demonstrates distinct lighting to show Ray's perception and point of view on his Valentine. Rembrandt lighting technique highlights just one side of the face and creates chiaroscuro effect that reference to the light and dark sides of Chloe's character. At first glance, these two films differ significantly from each other, so it would be reasonable to compare them together. However, if we abstract historical and social factors as well as a minor difference in subgenres, which I mentioned before, we can claim that these two films are following the canons of the paradigm of a genre that includes such incredible movies as The Godfather, 12 Angry Men, and of course, The Third Man and In Bruges. This genre calls the crime film.